Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ringside Cinema. I am Money Mike, and before we get into today's video, I want you to go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button, as I do produce weekly wrestling content here on the channel, and I am going to WrestleMania. So I will be vlogging all week, and I'll be posting videos while I'm in Las Vegas. I have some cool ideas for video locations. I'm going to shoot on location in Las Vegas while I am there. So go ahead, subscribe today. Now, I think it is safe to assume that most AEW fans are unsubscribing from the Death Rider storyline that has seemingly turned into in an attempt to copy the Bloodline storyline. I mean, it's safe to say, based off of how most of Jon Moxley's matches go, that it's just copying the Bloodline story, because we have the match, we get a ref bump, the Blackpool Combat Club gets involved, we get a whole bunch of interference, then Moxley retains. The very same formula with Roman Reigns and the Bloodline. And it's almost like Jon Moxley said, "Hey, Tony, I want to do what Roman's doing." And it's just not working. And I think it's turning fans away. I said this before last week when I thought Swerve Strickland should have beaten Moxley. Obviously, they went with the whole FTR turning on Cope, but it's one of those things where I would have been okay with the Blackpool Combat Club losing the um the trios title, because let's just put an end to this whole entire Blackpool Combat, Death Riders, whatever you want to call them, storyline, and just let it go. Like, Jon Moxley right now, this is not 2019 Jon Moxley. When Jon Moxley came to AEW, he legitimized AEW as a rival promotion to the WWE. He was that first big free agent from WWE to go to AEW. Now, that made a lot of headlines. He showed up at AEW Double or Nothing 2019. And Moxley did what he was asked to do. He helped build this new promotion, get it up off the ground. He brought star power to AEW. He became their world heavyweight champion. When the pandemic happened, Moxley, just like Drew McIntyre did in the WWE, Moxley was the equivalent where he carried AEW through that pandemic without no fans. And Moxley, right now, when you again look at 2019 versus 2025, I think it's safe to assume that 2019 Jon Moxley is not going to be showing up in 2025 to make the fans excited and happy to see him and happy to see this whole Death Rider storyline play out. I do think with the Young Bucks coming back and them doing the whole turn and costing Swerve for the sake of a swerve, and just so, you know, Jon Moxley can somehow retain the title. Like, for me, it's similar to what would I say? Maybe Drew versus Roman, where like Solo came out and cost Drew McIntyre the title when we thought he was going to lose there. That's kind of where I would put it, because again, I think we all kind of thought, okay, put the title on Swerve. Swerve can go and have a feud with Hangman for the world title at All In. And now it's just kind of like, now what? because Ospreay, I think right now would probably be the best bet to win the Owen Hart tournament to go on and face Moxley. So I think it's clear that the plan is really for Will Ospreay to be the one to dethrone Jon Moxley. But again, can you keep the fans interested in a storyline that they're already tired of all the way until July when he does finally win? Because fans right now, I think, are ready for something new. And AEW took the Bloodline storyline and just escalated it to the point of, hey, we're tired of it. Let's end it. Like the fans were kind of ready for the Bloodline storyline to end, but the thing with the WWE was they kept finding new ways to keep it interesting. They would find new wrinkles to keep us intrigued, to keep the story moving along. And right now, I don't see that with the Death Riders. And I think for Moxley, he's done everything there is in AEW. And at this point, it's time for him to come home. It's time to finish the Shield story. Now, like I said, his contract is up in 2027, so it's going to be a while. But perhaps Tony Khan, maybe he might let him out of his contract early, or maybe Moxley will want out of his contract. Either way, it's one of those things where Moxley has done everything there is in AEW. He's kind of right now, he shouldn't be in the main event scene. I look at Seth Rollins, where right now Rollins is, before he won the new world title back in 2023, Seth was a guy that was just kind of a reliable hand for the WWE, someone they could rely on to go out there and put on great matches, right? Moxley, I think, should be that guy for AEW, where he's not in the world title scene, but he's still having high profile matches against guys that we haven't seen him face before, or maybe we haven't seen him face in like a long time. Something to that effect, where it's not taking up the world title scene and others can be in that spot, right? Because, again, go back to 2019. AEW needed Jon Moxley. They needed a guy like him at that time. Now we're 2025, and AEW has grown tremendously. Their roster has grown tremendously. So, does AEW in general still need Jon Moxley? No, I don't think so. I think, again, you could even say the same thing for Chris Jericho. I think they've worn out their welcome. I think it's time for Moxley to go back home and finish his story. The WWE has been telling this story between Seth and Roman, and you can't tell it without Dean Ambrose. We need Moxley. And right now, I think we're going to get that Seth Roman one-on-one match probably next year at WrestleMania. But maybe if the WWE can hold off in the hopes that, hey, maybe they throw a bunch of money at Moxley and they go, hey, we want you to be the special guest referee for Reigns versus Rollins at WrestleMania in Indianapolis. Indianapolis was where the Shield was born. We saw the confrontation between Seth and Roman at the Royal Rumble in Indianapolis, where Seth said, hey, it started here, we're going to finish it, or, all this other stuff. And I do think at some point, maybe by 2027, 2028, who knows, maybe Seth and Roman will be ready to retire, and maybe we get like a Seth Roman double retirement match where it's Seth and Roman, and maybe you bring in Moxley to be the special guest referee. You have a curtain call moment at the end of the match where it's one final thing for the Shield, or maybe it's a triple threat match with all three members and all three just fighting it out to determine who truly was the best member of the Shield, and something to that effect. Because right now, I think that's truly been what's needed for the Seth Roman feud, because they can't really acknowledge Dean Ambrose because he's not working for him. So they it's just truly this missing piece, because we know Dean and Seth have had their issues. Roman and Seth have had their issues, but the one thing that's never happened is that Dean and Roman were always cool. They were always best buds. They were friends. Those two never betrayed each other. It was Dean, Seth to the Shield to Roman, and it was so that dynamic, especially without Vince McMahon. That's the one thing. Vince botched the Shield reunion multiple times when it could have been something so much more. And now with Triple H in control, I think, to me, especially with Roman and Seth, now where we are now in 2025, I do think we could get a rightful storybook ending to the Shield if Moxley were to come back. Now, again, like I said, his contract doesn't end until 2027, so it will be a couple years, barring Tony Khan letting him out of his contract early. But I think it's safe to say right now he's reached the point of Cody Rhodes, where the fans were booing him before Cody went back to the WWE. And maybe Tony Khan should just give Moxley a little break, and maybe the fans will miss him. They'll turn around back on him, cheer him, whatever. And with that being said, Ken, here we go. Let's try it again. And with that being said, what do you guys think of the Death Rider storyline, Jon Moxley? Did you want to see him lose to Swerve Strickland back at AEW Dynasty? Can AEW wait until All In for him to lose, or do they have to have him drop the title sooner? It's going to be an interesting few months in AEW. That is all I'm going to say. Do you want a Shield reunion one final time? Comment below. And as always, I've been your host, Money Mike, and you've been watching Ringside Cinema.